Mushrooms can add such a fun and whimsical touch to home decor, so I'm going to show you a few ideas on how to create your own for your home decor. I got these wooden mushrooms from Amazon. It came in a box full of some different sizes and shapes. I also have these rub-on transfers that I got from Dollar Tree as well as another craft store. You also need a selection of some craft paints in the color selection you would like. I'm also using this cream, which is like an off-white color for the base. I'm going to give the mushrooms 2 to 3 coats of the paint. If you want the wood grain to show through, then I would just use 1 coat of the paint. I'm going to coat the underside of the mushroom cap as well. I just really love this green color. It's so pretty and fresh for spring and summer, as well as this pretty daffodil yellow color. Another really fun color is this dogwood pink, and they're all from Decor. I have seen a selection of some wood mushrooms at Dollar Tree and other craft stores as well. So do check out all the different craft stores that you have in your location. I'm going to give a coat of the off-white paint on the stems. Again, I'm going to be giving it 2 to 3 coats, and if you want the wood grain to show through, then I would definitely just use 1 coat. I'm being very careful when I take my paintbrush and I go up underneath the mushroom cap so I don't get white on the underside. I think these mushrooms are going to be so cute for like a child's room or in like a little library or a little study nook. I think they're just such a pretty touch. I'm going to now use these rub-on transfers. I got these ones last year from Dollar Tree, and you can get rub-on transfers from other locations as well, at wherever you can pick up some craft supplies. I'm going to just cut out the little pieces that I want to use on my mushrooms, and I just find that cutting them straight out like this works the best. It's easier to handle each image. So I'm going to start off by applying these rub-on transfers onto the stem. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you with this one what I'll do. You just want to take a craft stick and start to rub the image on, and you'll kind of see how it transfers on. If you want it to be more precise, then I would cut into the plastic just to make it so it forms around your mushroom stem a little bit more easily. I'm going to continue to add these little images all the way around the stem until I get a look that I like. Really like how this one turned out. It kind of has a folk art look. So I'm going to show you how you can apply it to the mushroom cap. I'm just going to use my fingernail to transfer this. This was just some leftover bits that I had in my stash that I wanted to try and use up. I have to admit, I am not as crazy about this on the mushroom cap as I like it on the stem. It could have just been maybe the images I was using, but I prefer the mushroom stem a whole lot better than the mushroom cap look. But you experiment, play around. If you don't like it, you could always just paint over it. But like I said, I just wanted to show you what this looks like as well. Another option, if you don't have any rub-on transfers, is if you are really, really good at painting, you can definitely hand paint this. You can use like paint markers or a fine tip paintbrush, or you could even draw on these. I thought that would be a really interesting touch. If you can get your hands on some delicate stickers, that is another option. There's lots of different ways you can transform these stems. You could just get really creative here. You could decoupage some napkins on here as well. That would be a really easy project too. I'm going to give them all a coat of some matte varnish, and then that's it. They are so pretty. You can use them in the wreath or any way that you'd like in your decor. For this next idea, I am going to be creating a stem out of some foil. So this could be adapted for any mushroom project that you're doing, especially if you're creating your own mushroom cap. You can even use foil to create your own mushroom cap. Consider it kind of like craft or molding clay in a way. So I'm just going to go ahead and just add some more foil until I get the thickness that I like. I'm making sure that the base of my stem is thicker at the bottom than it is at the top, like you would actually see in nature. So this one's a little bit too short for my liking, so I'm going to go ahead and continue to add some more foil until I get a height that I like. I've had these crepe paper streamers in my craft room for a long time, and I thought, you know what, I really like the texture of this, so I thought it would be really cool to use these to decoupage for my stem. I've got a combination of some water and some glue. It's about 1-to-1. I'm just going to coat the tin foil and then start to wrap my crepe paper around my foil to cover it all up. And you can see the texture that there is. I think it's just such a cool technique. I decided to go with the gray to start, and then I allowed it to dry. And then I discovered, I'm like, I'm not that crazy about this, so I'm going to end up changing that out, but I'll show you what that looks like. It ended up creating some depth to the piece anyways, but I covered up the bottom, and again, just decoupaging that a couple of times. And then I'm going to just continue to work all the way up to the stem to the top. You can see here it's partially dried, and I wasn't crazy about the gray color, so I decided to add the cream. And I also discovered that you could see the really harsh lines of the tissue as well, or the crepe paper. So I decided to tear some of these pieces down to a smaller size just to make it a little bit easier to handle. And it also kind of breaks up that harsh straight line. And so I'm just going to go ahead and apply some of my decoupage glue and press the crepe paper into place. It really does add a unique texture. You can see here I did tear some of these pieces a little bit, again, just to remove that harsh edge, and it created a much smoother, more natural look. So I decided to do that with the rest of my pieces, just so, again, it gets rid of that straight line. So I've allowed it to all dry, and I love how it turned out. The gray actually kind of shows through, which is really cool. So I am actually going to use a vintage tin as my mushroom cap. So I just added some hot glue, and I'm pressing my stem in underneath the tin, and I'm allowing that to set up a little bit. And then I'm going to go in and add a bit more hot glue in around the base. I was able to get my glue gun inside here. And then I took a craft stick and I removed the glue around, just so I had a little bit better adhesion between the stem and the tin. I allowed that glue to set up. It does not take very long, which is nice. And then I decided that for this purpose today, I'm going to create a base on a wood stem, but you do not have to do this step. This was just to make it easier for me to show you on display what it looks like, but you could use this mushroom for any project. I think it's such a unique piece. I love to craft with doilies. I picked this one up from the thrift store. I'm also using a piece of scrap fabric, another thing I love to craft with. And I'm going to trim the scrap fabric down to size so it'll fit underneath my doily. So you can see I'm just folding it half and trimming off the excess, being very careful not to cut into my doily. I'm going to continue to trim down the fabric until I've got the right size that will fit underneath the doily. So you could use some decoupage glue for this, but I decided to use some white school glue. I am going to mix 1 part glue to 1 part water. And I find that school glue creates a really matte finish. I didn't want there to be any sheen to this, so I decided that white glue would be the best. I'm going to use a decoupage bottle, and I'm going to place the tin on top of that. This is going to be my base. I'm soaking my fabric in the glue solution, and I'm going to drape it over the tin. That will create a base for this. It gives a really, really cool shape. And then I'm going to be allowing that to dry. But first I wanted to just drape it, shape it, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the same with the doily. Soak it up really well. You can make some more glue if you need to, but I find that once you squeeze it out, it actually releases quite a bit. It's a really messy, project, so you'll want to use a protective surface. I'm going to drape that on top, and I'm going to set it aside and allow it to dry. When you drape it over top, you want to make sure it's all centered. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pull on it and just straighten things out until I'm happy with how it looks, because that's exactly how it's going to dry. So I allowed it to dry overnight, and now the doily released very easily, but I discovered here that my fabric was a little bit off kilter, so I just took some scissors and trimmed it off. You don't end up seeing that edge, but you could always just kind of fray it a bit if it bothers you. I'm just going to gently remove the fabric off of the tin, and at this point, you can put it back together as is. I decided to keep the tin in place because it created a more sturdy surface, and I really liked the shape of it. I was happy with that. I'm using some fabric glue on the tin, and I'm going to just use my finger to spread it around, and that's what I'm going to use to adhere the fabric. I just thought that that would probably work best. If you have another suggestion for glue, feel free to leave that down in the comments section just to let me know, because I wasn't exactly sure which other glue would work for this. So I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of fabric glue to adhere the doily as well, and just a little bit. I didn't need to add too much, so I'm just again using my finger, spreading that on the fabric. I don't like it to be too heavy because it will show through. So I'm going to put the doily in place. I'm going to put it back on my decoupage glue bottle, and I'm going to allow that to set up. Now, I did end up coming in and adding just a little bit of hot glue here and there underneath the rim just to help hold it into place better, and then you can start to assemble the rest of your mushroom. So I'm going to use this branch that I foraged. I cut it down to size already, and I'm going to again use hot glue. I'm generously applying hot glue to the stem, and then I'm going to put that into place underneath. And this was really fun and easy, a great way to use those doilies a lot of us collect. And I'm going to again use a wood piece to create a nice stable place for me to put this on display, and I love it. I think it's such a unique mushroom. Let me know what you think of this one down below. So I had this vase in my stash for, probably like 20 years now, and I wasn't using it anymore, but I really liked the shape. Gave it a coat of some white gesso. Gesso is a primer. It's great to work on surfaces like this. You can see it's super shiny. I'm using the Artist Loft brand. It is from Michaels. It has a nice smooth consistency. I apply 2 coats onto the vase and I allow it to dry well. Another option would be the Decor brand. That's a nice smooth consistency as well. But just play around and experiment with different gesso brands and see what you like best. I've allowed it to dry, and now I'm going to add some chalk paint. I'm using the Whisper chalk paint put out by Decor, and you could use any chalk paint that you like. This is the color I really wanted for my base of my mushroom. So I'm going to apply just 1 coat. You can apply as many coats as you would like, and any brand of chalk paint that you like best. I find that adding the gesso just gives more tooth for the paint to grip onto. So that's why I decided to do that step. I'm using this thrifted wood bowl. It was actually made in Canada, which I loved. I thought it was awesome. I wanted to strip it down. I didn't like the finish that was on it. This is a brand that is made here in Canada. It's low VOC, which is awesome. So find a paint stripper that you really like that's safe to use. I did have some ventilation going in my room because it does have a little bit of odor. Use some gloves, a protective surface, and also a paintbrush to apply this gel to your surface. So again, depending on the brand that you're using, just please follow the instructions carefully. So I've generously applied the solution all over the wood bowl, tried to apply it as thick as I could. Now I'm going to take a piece of plastic wrap and I'm going to drape that over. That helps to keep it wet and active for as long as possible. And I follow the instructions and allow that to set. I'm going to work on my mushroom base again. I decided that I wanted to give it a coat of this matte varnish. Now this is optional. I decided to do this because I wanted to do one more technique to it, and if I didn't do this step, the technique wouldn't work properly. But just be forewarned, this will leave a bit of a shine. So if you don't want that look, then I recommend that you skip this step. But I wanted to add some archival ink to this. And archival ink is a permanent ink, but it would soak in too much into the chalk paint. So I decided if I use the varnish, it won't soak in so much. It would just sit on the surface of the varnish like you see me doing right here. Just creating kind of a dirt look like you would see in nature on mushrooms. I'm just gonna rub it out a bit just to smooth it out to get rid of any harsh lines. So I let that set. Now my paint stripper is all ready to go. It had activated and you can see how the finish is lifting. I just using a plastic card, scraping it off, using a rag to remove any of the excess. It worked quite well. I was really impressed. I didn't bother to do the underside because I won't be seeing that, but if you want to, go ahead and strip that down, or you could even just paint the inside just to make it a little easier. So to get rid of some of the little bits that are still left behind, I'm just going to use some sandpaper and I'm going to sand that off. It came off really, really easily. It also helped to smooth out the surface of our wood bowl as well. I'm going to give this a coat of some vintage wash effect put out by Decor again, using a rag, and it's a white color. And I'm just going to smooth that all the way around. That helped to tone down that orangey red stain that was on the wood bowl. I don't know what the finish was originally, so I don't know if it was like stain from the original finish or if that was the color of the wood. So the vintage effect is all dry. Now to create more the brown color that I want, I'm going in with some oak stain and I'm going to add that on top. And I will show you the difference. It really does look different from the original. But I'm just going to go ahead and give this a coat of the stain, allow that to dry. Now I'm going in and just stippling on just to create a bit more dimension. I found that this actually was very effective. So I'm just going to do that, and then I'm going to allow it all to dry. You can see the difference right here from the before and after, and it made a huge difference. So I'm going to just use some of the stain that was left over on the rag and apply it to the base of my mushroom. And it just created a bit more dimension to the stem. And I really, really liked how it just tied into the mushroom top as well. So I decided to use some clear matte spray to just seal it all up. And you can see how pretty this is. Now I'm going to attach the two pieces together. I'm just going to use some hot glue. I started off with the top of the vase, but I'm like, no, that's going to end up curing too quickly. So I added hot glue to the underside of the wood bowl. I'm going to press my vase into place for my stem, and that was it. It's such a cool and unique piece. You've really got to let me know what you think of this one. I love it. I think it's such a rustic and original piece. I have more nature-inspired DIYs in this video for you to check out right here. Thank you so much for joining me today. We will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.